Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. I'm so glad you're here. This is Spirit Matters, your daily spiritual check-in, coming at you live from New York. My name is Dal Grung, and I'm here with Vasudev, who's been our guest this week. It's been wonderful and lovely having you with us, Vasudev. How are you this morning?
Very good. Thank you so much. Hare
He's,
Krishna.
he's very good. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Glad that you're with us. We will see you next time. No. It's been really sweet and actually really, as I told you, I was speaking with a mutual friend of ours yesterday, Hari Prasad, and just asking how we're doing. And I haven't connected with him in like a very, very long time. But I was speaking with him, and one of the things I just said, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm speaking with Vasudev every morning this week." And I said, "It's so wonderful. You're such a treasure trove of references and verses and statements and reflections. And it's been really, 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 really beautiful. And I've appreciated that. I've gotten a lot from it. Some of the things that I appreciated was when we started off of I'd rather be in I'd rather face an uncomfortable truth and live in a comfortable state of self-deception. And then that led us to a lot of spaces of talking about seeking truth. And you're referencing the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam that talks about Satya Param Dhimahi, meditating on that absolute truth, and that God, in many ways, which can be a word that can mean a lot of different things. One of the things that I share a lot when I'm conversing or in discussion or classes with other people is that words very often have different meanings for people, and we get confused about that. And we're arguing about something. We're talking about religion. I'm not religious. Well, do we even have a shared understanding of what religion means, or what
Yes.
God means, or what spirituality means, or what soul means? And so God, as initially defined the Bhagavatam, is the absolute truth, that ultimate truth. And being a seeker of truth, and you've been a seeker of truth your whole life from a very young age, and leaving behind worldly pursuits to become a brahmachari monk, which you did for many years, and now you've been here continuing your service at the Bhakti Center and studying. And so it's been an enriching conversation about truth, about faith, about courage in spiritual life, and what it means to set goals in spiritual life. We talked about goals in spiritual life. So all that's been really, really beautiful, and I've appreciated it. That's my recap. That's my recap of where we've been.
It's pretty good. Yeah, thank you. Thank
How
you.
did I
Yeah, it's
do?
enriching for me. It's nice to
Yeah.
just speak about these topics. We get
Yeah.
to speak a lot about, this thing at the Bhakti Center and this thing going on, and it's just kind of nice to just speak about the essence of it all. That's what we're
Yeah.
here for.
Just get right to it.
Yes.
So I was thinking of one thing we can look at today, but before I'm always trying to be conscious about my dominating nature, although I am the host of this podcast, so I should be directing where we're going. But if there's any question, reflection, or thing that's come up for you that we've discussed and you want to dive into, let me know. And if not, as a fallback, I have a couple verses I picked up for us to read that we've been referencing, some verses that you referenced all the way back in our first podcast that we could read, look at the purport. Unless there was a verse or something that has been coming up for you in your discussions and reflections this week that you wanted to bring up.
No, I'm totally good with that. Would love to
Okay.
look at the verses you mentioned.
So in the very beginning, you referenced these. We've been reading the fourth chapter in Spirit Matters. We've been reading the fourth chapter of the Gita.
Yeah.
And you referenced some verses later on in the fourth chapter of the Gita, verses 39 and 40, talking about faith. Because we're talking about what keeps us from. We were talking about how powerful just the basic essential truths and practices of spiritual life are, and what keeps us from engaging in them consistently. Like, why do we have a tough time living the life we want to live for ourselves? And one of the things I think that came up was, I don't actually believe that this is going to work. I don't actually have a strong enough faith that if I apply myself here consistently, then I will achieve the results. And we talked about having a sadhya, a goal in mind. And then a sadhana is that practice which brings us to that goal. And a sadhaka or a sadhu is somebody who lives that life of spiritual practice in pursuit of a goal. And then you reference these two verses at the end of the 4th chapter, 39 and 40, and that talk about having faith and also being devoid of that faith. And I thought we would read those verses, and they're short purports by Srila Prabhupada, and we can just read them and see what comes up. Does that sound good?
That's good to me.
Verse 39. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it, quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. Purport. Such knowledge in Krishna consciousness can be achieved by a faithful person who firmly believes in Krishna. One is called a faithful man who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness, he can attain the highest perfection. This faith is attained by the discharge of devotional service and by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, which cleanses one's heart of all material dirt. Over and above this, one should control the senses. A person who is faithful to Krishna and who controls the senses, Prabhupada slips that in there, can easily attain perfection in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness without delay. I feel like I should read this before Thursday night kirtan tonight. Like, this is why we're here.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Vasudev?
This verse, like many times, I've opened the Bhagavad Gita and somehow it many times opened up on this verse. So in this way, it's always stuck with me, this verse. Yeah, Shraddhavan, one who has faith, a faithful man, a person of faith, who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge. Tatparaha, it's said in the Sanskrit, dedicated to it. Of course, the question is here, what is that transcendental knowledge? Where should we be intent upon? And that relates to the verse 34. Very famous verse, which I'm sure you're going to get to very quickly next week.
Let's get to it right now.
Tadvidi pranipatina pariprashnena sevya upadakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So Krishna speaks about many kinds of sacrifices in this chapter. That's kind of the verses where we're at. There's many kinds of sacrifices, and they all lead to transcendental knowledge. That they should all gradually, directly or indirectly, lead to transcendental knowledge. So that knowledge, try to understand it, Krishna says, by approaching a spiritual teacher who, with submission, three things: with submission, with questions, with inquiry, and with a mood of service, in a humble mood of service. And throughout the Vedic literatures, we find many other verses how kind of stating the same thing. And these people of transcendental knowledge, they can show you that. They can help you realize that, because they have realized it themselves. They're jnanina, they have knowledge of the ancient spiritual texts, the Vedas. And they also tattvadarshina, they also have experience of that. They're seeing that, they're realizing that. These are always the two qualities mentioned of a spiritual teacher: one who has knowledge of the scriptures, transcendental knowledge, and who can then, and who has they have realization of that.
Yeah. I really appreciate your focusing on what is transcendental knowledge. And I was just reading this yesterday. I have a community group on Wednesdays online. It just ended, actually. Yesterday was the last one. Brian's has been in that group. And we've been reading this book, Yoga and the Dark Night of the Soul by Simon Haas. And it follows the flow of the Gita and Arjuna's journey from the depths of his despair towards enlightenment. And at the very end, we read the last chapter, and he talks about transcendental knowledge, because Krishna defines and references knowledge in the 13th chapter of the Gita. And it's very
Yeah.
interesting how he describes knowledge. So I'm going to read, he shares, Simon Haas, he says that one of the most surprising questions Arjuna asks Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is, what is knowledge?
Mhm.
So what does it mean to know? Arjuna has a sense that real knowledge is not about storing ideas and information in our mind. So Krishna, in reply, gives Arjuna an incredibly beautiful list of divine qualities: humility, absence of deceit, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, etc. That's a long list. This Krishna declares as knowledge. All else is the absence of knowledge. And then this is the part that I highlighted in the book. If the information we hold doesn't create transformation within, if it doesn't elevate us, it's simply another manifestation of folly or the absence of knowledge. And he goes on, sacred love grows on the soil of humility. Without humility, sacred love can't manifest in the heart, just as a plant can't grow without nutrient-rich soil.
Yeah.
So I
Krishna
highlighted
mentioned it.
that aspect, that knowledge is meant to bring about transformation in the heart. And so when Krishna is talking about dedication to transcendental knowledge, and then he also mentions subduing the senses, that actually, like, my spiritual life is meant to bring about transformation of character. And when we're talking about approaching a guru or a spiritual teacher, you're saying a tattvavit, one who is a knower of truth. That knowing of truth should manifest in our behavior and in our character. And it's not just how much we know or how much we memorize or how much we regurgitate, but how much we apply it deeply. And I think that in spiritual life, what we miss sometimes is that the simplest of things applied very deeply have a profound effect. And so I appreciate you catching that point and bringing it to our attention about transcendental knowledge, and how it's ultimately, because we talked a lot about, I think it was yesterday or earlier this week, that this world is one big giant correction facility of our ego, you know. And I've been thinking about this recently, just in some interpersonal things going on with people, and you get, if you ever had a interpersonal challenge with anybody in your life, you know, ever had anybody that rubs you the wrong
I have
way,
a
or you're rubbing them
continuous,
the wrong way?
I have a continuous interpersonal challenge in my life.
And if it's not one person, it's another, right? And it's
Yeah.
this thing like, and then, but I've just been meditating on trying to remind myself, this is a gift from Krishna. It's a
Yeah.
gift for Krishna to me to put into practice the things that we talk about so much. What does it mean for me to be humble? What does it mean for me to be tolerant? What does it mean for me to be forgiving? What does it mean for me to not react in a way that is regrettable or be provoked, you know, that pulls me out of character? And so, and if I see that's faith, that this is not chaotic and random, but that Krishna is sending me what I need in order for
Yeah.
me to grow in the ways that I need to.
Yeah. Yeah. Character and transcendental knowledge are so tightly tied together. Good character leads to transcendental knowledge. Like Krishna says, when he describes the process of knowledge, interesting, he says, first thing he says, amanitum, adambitum, humility and pridelessness. These are the first prerequisites for knowledge. That's character. If you already think you know and you're like a little full of yourself, then it's very hard to receive. But if you feel like if you're humble, and as we discussed also, if you're just honest, like, yeah, I really don't understand who I am. And I am, and even if I have some theoretical understanding, I fall short in so many ways. So let me always humble myself and seek to listen and to hear from those who are more advanced than me. And in many ways, we can find someone more advanced, you know, somebody can be more advanced than me in so many ways. Like there was once Dronacharya, he sent out Yudhishthira and Duryodhana on a quest, and the quest was find someone who was you remind me here, who was less qualified than you.
Well, I think they said on a different, I think maybe, I don't know exactly, but maybe it might have been that he asked you to steer to find somebody who was less qualified with
Yeah.
him, and he asked Duryodhan to find somebody who's more.
Yes, exactly. You got it. You got it.
Ask you to steer, find somebody um, who's a less of a devotee than you, and Duryodhan find somebody who's greater than you, and neither of them could find anybody.
Yeah. 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 Even Yudhishthira at some point he found some fault in that person, in some person, but then it turned out to be like, that person actually was doing the right thing, and so he felt like, yeah, I'm definitely less qualified. So, and that made him qualified to be the
Mm.
king. And from the story we understand, like the most humble is the most qualified
Mm.
to receive spiritual knowledge and training, and to also have a leadership role. So character leads to transcendental knowledge, and especially these qualities like humility and self-control and all these things. And then also transcendental knowledge leads to character. That's the other thing, because when we speak of philosophy, in the Sanskrit word for philosophy, interesting, is darshan. We read about tattva darshinaha, those who see the truth. So darshana means seeing. It's a vision, it's an outlook. So your knowledge is supposed to transform the way you look at yourself and you look at the world, and you look at,
Mm.
especially at other living beings.
Mm.
And that Krishna beautifully describes in the next verse. He actually describes here also in verse 35 of this chapter, what is that transcendental knowledge? What's the result of that? What happens? What transformation takes place when you have that vision, that outlook on the world with transcendental knowledge? So I'll just read this.
Yeah.
Radha Swami also likes to quote. It's a really beautiful verse.
This is
Having
Bhagavad Gita,
attained,
chapter 4, verse 35.
yeah, having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion, considering himself the body and identifying with the material. For by this knowledge, you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine.
Mm.
So to understand oneself to be a part of Krishna, to be a servant of the divine, and to see all other living beings in the same way, to have that equal-mindedness,
Mm.
that is the vision of transcendental knowledge. Now, when you apply that, for example, like we were discussing about, like, conflicts, which we necessarily will experience in this world. And in a way, we experience conflict because we are parts of Krishna, because we're all unique individuals. And we all have a little bit of a unique perspective on things. Probably in one letter he says that if we think there's no more conflict in the spiritual society, and we live in a utopia,
Mm.
because we're all individuals. So we're bound to have, differences. That's what makes us individual. But we can see the unifying factor within those differences. We see like everybody's a part of Krishna, and in the spiritual society, you can see how everybody is trying to serve Krishna in their particular way, or serve God in their particular way. And then, we can appreciate that, even though it may not be the way, exactly the way I see things. So that's the unity, seeing the unity in the diversity.
Yeah, I love the focus on the word darshan, and how knowledge is meant to transform the way in which we see the world. And in the first line of that purport, because I was looking at the verse that you read, verse 435, Prabhupada mentions the result of receiving knowledge from a self-realized soul, or one who knows things as they are, is learning that all living beings are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And so it transforms the way that I see people. It transforms the way that I see people, that I was seeing this person as my enemy. I was seeing this person as something else. And now I'm actually seeing their eternal connection to Krishna. And it transforms the way that I see people. And it reminds me, I've been listening a little bit to lectures from the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and the prayers of and teachings of Prahlad Maharaj to his friends in school about seeing beyond the concept of friends and enemies. And in many ways, friends and enemies is in the material world is related to who corroborates or who challenges the stories of my ego. I have a particular ego identity. And if you jive with that and support that and are on board with that and can play a supporting role in that, you're my friend. I like you. You're a good person. I like being around you. If you challenge the narrative of my ego, you challenge the outlook that I have about myself and the world, then you're an enemy. And everybody has a different center by which they are determining who's a friend and who's an enemy, or who's in their inner circle and who's out. But actually, transcendental knowledge actually creates a different center for us to look at people and judge people differently, or remove judgment, because I'm no longer judging you based off of your relation to my own ego identity, but I'm actually looking you as an eternal part of Krishna's energy, as an eternal spirit soul who's also making their way back towards wholeness, back towards Krishna. And there's a verse that I've been reading a lot or thinking about a lot. And it's in the 5th chapter, verse 17. I probably referenced this a few times in the last coming weeks. It's verse 517 in the Gita, where Krishna says, when one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme. So it's having that clear understanding and putting Krishna in the center, the supreme absolute truth, understanding that supreme truth. Then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge, right? So again, knowledge meaning not just understanding, but actually seeing things differently. I can let go of misgivings. I can let go of grudges. I can let go of petty argumentations, because I'm just seeing things differently. And it's not that what we disagreed on goes away, but it just becomes less important, or it becomes not worth lowering our consciousness to a place where we become absorbed in pettiness and grudging and hatred. What was it? It was Booker T. Washington. You know that quote from Booker T. Washington?
I don't even know who's Booker T. Washington.
Booker T.
I'm sure he's a
Washington.
part
I
and
don't know.
parcel of Krishna.
What's that? He's in a
I'm sure he's
part and parcel of Krishna. I don't know Booker T. Washington other than this quote. Let me look up Booker T. Washington as a person. He was an American educated. He was African American. I don't know when he lived. He lived between 1890 and 1950. So post World War II. He was a dominant leader in the African American community of the contemporary Black elite. So he was African American in America. During and post Civil War. He lived from 1856 to 1950. So he was a kid during the Civil War, and post Civil War, he was an author and an educator. And he wrote this. He's credited this quote: "I would permit no man, no matter what his color might be, to narrow and degrade my soul by making me hate him." Right.
Yeah.
I would permit no man, no matter what his color might be, to narrow and degrade my soul by making me hate him. And I learned this quote from Radhanath Swami. He quoted it once, like
it's
10 years ago at the Bhakti Center. Whenever there's interpersonal conflict, he was like, no matter what's going on, don't allow yourself to come to the level of hating another person. And I think it was Martin Luther King Jr. who told something similar, like, I choose love because hate is a burden too great to bear.
Yeah, we have to distinguish between conditioning and the real soul. Like you said yesterday, between sat and what is sat, what is asat, what is real, what is truth, what is ephemeral, how is it? Ephemeral?
Ephemeral.
Yeah, ephemeral and temporary, and therefore unreal. I mean, it's true, like the conditioning is there, it's real, it's not just like that it doesn't exist, it's there, but it's temporary. The villain today may be the same tomorrow, we don't know. So we have to really look for the essence of things. And the essence is that one's eternal identity. And that's very hard to see that, because especially when you're when you're dealing with like hostility, and somebody's coming at you in a violent, physically or emotionally violent way, to see, and to see in that way, that's very challenging. But that's also those opportunities where we can make lots of advancement to just, and we may even in the moment get caught up and feel angry and feel like even keep some grudge. But that's where reflection comes in. We also spoke about that yesterday. That's where the reflection comes in, that like, yeah, I feel hurt, etc. But I'm not gonna bear a grudge. I'm not gonna be hateful. I'm gonna be forgiving, because I see that this person is acting out of conditioning, but that's not the real person. I'm not gonna throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to say. I'm gonna look at the true identity and the true, the true essence of the person.
Yeah. That was a question that I had, which we'll end with today. We'll pick it up for tomorrow. Was I wanted to just pick your brain a little bit about humility, because we were talking about humility and forbearance and forgiveness, and how that also relates to personal integrity and standing up for ourselves when needed. Because sometimes, humility and low self-esteem can get intertwined and mixed up, and then we allow people to treat us in ways that are inappropriate. And so I just wanted to, it's a common question that comes up, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it, what that looks like, and what your, thoughts and perspective on that. And so, but we're at time today. So somebody bookmark that for tomorrow. We're going to turn it over to Kimberly, who's got some takeaways for us, what we're walking away with. So if you'd like to take notes, if you'd like to have some little life hacks and tips or phrases to take with you, now's the time to put down the kids, stop washing the dishes, turn off the shower, pull over to the side of the road, get out your notebook and tune in. She's going to give you some takeaways. Then we're going to have a closing word and we'll wrap it up.
All right, takeaways. The most humble is the most qualified to receive spiritual knowledge. Knowledge is meant to bring inner transformation and elevate our vision. The simplest things applied deeply have a profound effect, and to see the unity within the diversity. Thank you.
Thank you.
You. Rossi, you got a takeaway?
Yeah, my takeaway would be today to dedicate to transcendental knowledge with faith, and try to see the unity as I'm interacting with people today. Make that a meditation, to see the essence, and that everyone is a part of Krishna. We're all, in that sense, we're all one, but we're also different. As Baldevi says here, that the Guru said, "Sab ek," it is all one, but we're also different. That's equally important, to see the oneness and the difference.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful harmony of reality.
Yeah. I'm walking away with just inviting Krishna in my life to change the way I see things. That a lot of times there may be things that need to change around me, but one thing I know for certain needs to change is the way that I see things. Yesterday, I was on my way to the Bhakti Center, or to 26th Avenue, for the Prabhupada Meditations program that we have there. And I was just, my heart, my mind were going a bunch of different places. And normally it's like, you ruminate over something or whatever. And I was like, I'm just going to chant. And I just got out my japapis and I was just like chanting and like, Krishna, like, just bring this transcendental vibration into my mind and into my heart, and just chant, and just like, I'm just going to invite Krishna. This is an act of surrender right now, just inviting Krishna into my consciousness, because I want you to take over. I don't want to be ruminating on whatever I'm ruminating on. Help me see things differently. Help me have a higher perspective. And so bringing Krishna more deeply into my life. This morning I was doing yoga, and normally I listen to music. I was like, I'm going to listen to kirtan, because I just want like that sound vibration coming in, because it's a sadhana, it becomes a sadhana. It's not just, oh, I do it to feel good. It's like, I need this, You don't take your vitamin B12, you feel drained, or you don't, you eat crappy, you feel crappy. It's like if I don't have Krishna in my head and my heart, I'm gonna feel anxiety and I'm gonna get all caught up in my ego. So anyway, that's my long-winded takeaway of just inviting Krishna in so I can see things differently.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasudev. Thank you all so much. Grateful for all of you. We're really, really happy to have you here, Vasudev. Looking forward to one more session tomorrow. I'm already knowing that we got to have you here more regularly, just for myself. Even if we didn't even have a podcast, just checking in with you, the Gita, every day. It's a beautiful side. And people are really appreciating. People are messaging me and putting here in the chat that they really appreciate you. So thank you a lot.
Thank you. Appreciate to be here.
Okay, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.